Welcome to another episode of Bringing Dreams and Miracles Together. I'm Stacy Swiderski, CEO and founder of Family Source Consultants, and today we are truly honored to share a very special conversation. In this inspiring episode, Behind the Gift, a 6-time egg donor shares her journey with our Chief Administrative Officer, Andrea Reichman. She opens up about her experience as an egg donor, sharing the deeply personal stories behind each retrieval, the meaningful connections she felt with her recipient parents, and how becoming a donor helped her achieve her own goals, including covering her college tuition. You'll hear why she chose Family Source Consultants to guide her through this life-changing journey and how the agency's unwavering support made all the difference. Whether you're considering egg donation, are a recipient parent, or simply want to better understand the important impact donors make, this episode is filled with honesty, heart, and hope.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bringing Dreams and Miracles Together podcast. We are incredibly excited today to go over Egg Donor 249's inspirational story of her 6 donations. My name is Andrea Reichman. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer here at FSC. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to share my story and what knowledge I have to offer.
Yes, I'm thrilled to hear about your experiences. Like I said before, you're a 6-time egg donor. Could you give us some insight on what, started you on this amazing journey of egg donation?
Yeah, so I was really young when I started having children, and I learned very early on how fertile I was. And I watched some extended families struggle though to build their family and grow their family, carry babies, have even children that were genetically normal. So for me, I kind of found my passion through watching their struggle, because it really brought that, sympathetic approach to me wanting to become an egg donor. Because for me, it wasn't, I want to do this for the compensation. It's a very serious decision. There's going to be children that are half mine biologically in the world. And I want to make sure I'm giving them to families who have been, screened and have gone through the appropriate to make sure that they're ready for children. So yeah, that kind of started my journey. I started doing egg donations local. And then I found Family Source Consultants, which really broadened the horizon for me and allowed me to even travel to do egg donation, which is really fun.
I love that. I love your personal connection to egg donation. Seeing that it truly, stemmed from your heart, and that you were able to do it so many times. You did say you found Family Source Consultants. Can you kind of describe how that connection happened and maybe the differences between when you were doing it just local compared to working with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So after I did, I don't know if it was I've done so many egg donations, I can't even remember who I did them with. I can't remember if it was after my first or second egg donation when I started doing more research into egg donation, because in my mind, I told myself there can't just be this one clinic that does egg donation locally. To me, there has to be more out there. And I'm sure there's more intended parents, all over the world who might be able to benefit from me being an egg donor. And I donated to basically an egg bank the second time. So the first time was for a family, second time was an egg bank. But for me, I felt a little weird about the egg bank idea, because I'm not donating to one specific family. I'm donating to multiple families that I don't really know much about. And I didn't understand the egg bank process. So I just started Google searching, honestly. And Family Source Consultants was one of the first ones that popped up. And I really loved their mission statement. I really loved that they did both surrogacy and egg donation. I felt that they had a lot of knowledge in the industry and that I would probably be in better hands with Family Source Consultants.
Oh, I love that. I'm so happy we were able to be a part of your journeys, and helping you kind of broaden your horizon, like you said. It sounded like you did some maybe domestic and international donations. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I didn't really get to know much about my recipient parents that I was donating for, but I did know, general pieces of information like what country they live in, what
Okay.
fertility clinic they work with, whether they're married, whether they're, gay, straight couple, however that
Hmm.
might be. And I know that I had donated for a couple, Chinese couples and then an Australian couple. So for me, it just really the thought that, I'm helping these other families in other parts of the world. It feels like extended family and
Hmm.
like my biological children are going to learn, some really cool cultural aspects with other families in person, not
Yeah.
my children per se, but essentially it's just really neat to think about, helping families in that bigger plane. But for family source consultants, I feel like from the first intake call that I had with them through getting matched, and it was a lot. I was matched
Hmm.
pretty quickly, pretty consecutively, so it was a lot to handle initially, but I felt like my case coordinators, intake coordinator, everybody who helped me on the journey was so understanding and knowledgeable. I was one of those girls that had a million questions and they were just, they were there for every one of them. And I learned a lot, through Family Source Consulting. So very appreciative of you guys being a part of my journey.
Yes, I love that. It is important, especially like you said, egg donation is a deeply, can have personal connections, but it is a process. And having an agency there like Family Source Consultants to answer those questions so you don't feel like you're going through it alone, is very important. And I'm glad we helped you feel supported throughout your journeys. How would you say travel was with Family Source Consultants? I know you mentioned that earlier, being able to travel for your egg donations. Could you expand on that a little bit? Like what is all involved, how the agency helped you with anything, and maybe like your favorite parts of the travel as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I was pretty young when I started doing egg donation, and I hadn't traveled a ton before then. So there's a lot of things that I didn't know about, going through
Hmm.
TSA, what you need at, the counter, if you have needles and stuff in your bag with your injections that
Hmm.
you get for egg donation, needing a doctor's note. But my case coordinator was right on top of it. She, with egg donation, it's very cycle sensitive. So I remember there was one time I had to get on a plane like the next day. I wasn't anticipating getting on a plane for
Yeah.
another 3 days, but I was stimulating fast according to them. So they had to get me on a plane next day. But my case coordinator was so sweet. She reached out to me. She's like, here's the options that we have, which one works best for you time wise. Do you need me to, provide a note for your work to let them know
Oh.
that, the nature of the situation. So they really helped me, feel comfortable in my journeys. And there was one point where I, worried about my job because I
Hmm.
had, gone out for my egg donation journey and I was stuck out there for I think it was 4 or 5 extra days because I
Oh, wow. Yeah.
taking longer to stimulate that time. And my job, they were understanding initially, but then when it came to extending travel, they kind of saw
Hmm.
it as, oh, well, she's taking advantage of the situation.
Hmm.
So I felt like Family Source Consultants really helped step in and offer to call my boss. They sent an email, they really helped me not worry so much during the travels because I
Hmm.
was I was a little anxious with that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I loved it. I love that, it's basically, I don't want to say traveling for free because obviously you gotta have some cash up front to pay for other things,
Yes.
like, per diem and all. But it was nice to be able to see different parts of the country. And then, that was a part of the journey, a part of the adventure, and getting to go to these other fertility clinics, seeing how, different doctors work differently with different protocols.
Hmm.
I'm such a science nerd. So when it comes all things, at the fertility clinics, I'm very, curious about their processes and
Hmm.
but Family Source Consultants took really good care of me with my travels and it made it special, made the journey
Yeah.
more interesting.
Yes. I love that you have now all these different places throughout the country and even abroad where you have these little memories um, that you can say, oh, I helped, create a family in this country, or I traveled here for, you know, my appointments and all that. That's beautiful, gives you so many stories to tell, your children when you're traveling with them, like, hey, mommy was here when she was younger, and this is why.
Right. And they were so young when I was doing my egg donations. I can't wait till they get older and they understand it a
Yes.
little bit more,
That's beautiful. And I know you mentioned your donations started, with more of a personal connection, seeing, family members struggle. And we do know compensation is involved. How would you say that compensation helped you? Especially you said you were a bit younger. Like, what goals were you able to achieve using, the money you made?
Yeah, absolutely. So I oh gosh, my early years were such a blur because I had three children very close together. It was just, and I was in college working, two
Hmm.
jobs. So I had a very busy schedule. But I used the compensation to help me with my college, help me with, taking care of the kids. I actually used it for my own personal travels too. I always told
Oh,
myself, oh,
nice.
I'm gonna set, a little bit of the compensation back,
Yeah.
travel somewhere, that I've been wanting to travel to because I love traveling in general.
Hmm.
So yeah, it really helped, especially with the schooling part too, because college is
Hmm.
not cheap. And
Yes.
so, my pockets were constantly being drained during that time.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it really helped me with, again, college, as well as my personal travels. And I was able to kind of, stash some back as a nest egg if any emergencies
Mm.
had happened. And then, eventually move into, bigger home for my three children and everything else. So yeah.
That's wonderful. That's great to hear. I love how you put a little bit towards everything. You kind of split it up, make sure you were taking care of your children, education. I really, really love that. Um, What advice would you give to someone who might be thinking about becoming an egg donor? Any tips, tricks, that you have? You have so much experience with your 6 donations. You probably know a thing or two.
Right, right. And I think the biggest one, again, I was so young that I was just kind of like, take the rope, to take me on a
Hmm.
ride, to do whatever we got to do. Like, we'll just, adjust to things as we go. I think the biggest thing that I could offer for, future and current egg donors is have an open schedule. Have an open mind to the whole process. There's going to be things that happen that are inconvenient, which is,
Hmm.
all kind of I feel like it's all part of the compensation piece. It all goes into the compensation for what we're doing. We're giving up, a certain part of a certain timeline to do our egg donation journey. And it is very cycle sensitive. So, you might think that you're traveling in a couple of days and then all of a sudden you're on a plane the same day or next day.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think just having that flexibility, not just with the schedule, but also with the way of thinking about egg donation, because every egg donation is going to be different too. Some are going to be
Hmm.
easier, doing 6 of them. I had some easy ones and I had some really rough ones. But the case coordinators are great. They're there to lean on. They are very
Hmm.
empathetic. They've all basically gone through their own fertility journeys too. At least that's what I found when I've, worked with case coordinators. They all have personal experience in it too, and they're very empathetic with us. But yeah, I think it's just having that open schedule, open mind to egg donation, and also realizing there's another side of it too, very hopeful recipient parents that
Yes.
are, yeah, they look at their egg donors. I feel like recipient parents look at egg donors like angels. They see us as
Hmm.
we are a window into their opportunity for parenthood. So as much as things can seem daunting, oh, I gotta take another shot, or I have to go to another early morning monitoring appointment, or oh my gosh, I gotta get on a plane tomorrow, what am I going to do? I saw it as I'm helping build families for other people, and there is, a prize at the end of it all for the intended parents and for me to help take care of my family. So, yeah.
I love that. You said, emphasis on the recipient parents, they're growing their family. I love that have that always in the back of your mind, this is why I'm doing this. Did you opt for, or were your donations, were they open, closed? Like, do you know the outcome of any of them?
Yeah, so a majority of mine were closed. I only did one open egg donation. And I'm actually still in contact with the recipient parents. They have a little boy and a little girl. We're on
Mhm.
social media. We follow each other's families. We're basically like
Yeah.
extended family. So that was nice, having that
Mhm.
communication. And that was my last egg donation that I did. So I kind of went out with a bang. I'm like, you know what?
Yes.
This is my last one. I want to build a relationship with them. My prior ones, they were closed egg donations. But yeah, I feel like, we have to have that sympathetic approach when we're thinking about becoming egg donors too, because, as much as that compensation looks really good, we have to realize that, we're putting our genetics out there, right?
Yes.
We want to build a good relationship with those potential parents. And so yeah, no, even with the closed egg donations, just they were always in the back of my mind as I was going through it, even though I didn't have contact with them. But I was able to ask, my case coordinator throughout the years, oh, was there a live pregnancy that happened from my egg donations, or whatever happened with that so, I was able to ask questions and get answers that way. And then obviously they didn't share any identifying information, but it was just nice to know that, hey, we have some babies out in the world and
Yeah.
they're living happy, healthy lives with their parents.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Um, Last question, and it's a tough one. If
Oh,
you had to pick one memorable moment, your number one, I know you've had quite a few journeys, but you have to pick one. This is it. I'm telling my story of being an egg donor. This is my moment. What would that moment be?
oh my gosh. And I don't want to say this because of I don't want it to be seen as a negative. So my last egg donation was my hardest egg donation to do. I'm a high producer. I tend to donate a lot of eggs, and then it takes my body a little longer to recover. It usually takes a week, a week or two before I'm back at it. But with that egg donation, I remember, the day before retrieval or the night before retrieval, I was in quite a bit of pain. And, a part of me is like, do I need to go to the emergency room? Do I need to go to the fertility clinic? What do I need to do? But again, I remember, even just being in the shower to like help myself kind of relax a little bit and remind myself that I need to get to the fertility clinic. I need to donate these eggs for these parents because they are, they're, I am their hope to parenthood. And I remember looking and seeing the flowers on my bathroom counter that they had sent me, and just, there's a lot of love that went into creating those little embryos and bringing those babies into the world. And I think of that moment as my most memorable moment because, after that, obviously 6 donations were done anyways, but I couldn't do that again just because, what my body had gone through. But to see that they ended up with a little boy and a little girl, I just look at those two and I think, oh my gosh, thank goodness, I listened to my gut instinct and I stuck it through, instead of going to the hospital, I went to the fertility clinic at 6 a.m. when they opened, I was like, get these eggs out of me. Because even, emergency rooms, sometimes they don't know how to handle a situation when it comes to, what might be considered ovarian hyperstimulation or, and in my mind, I'm like, if I would have gone to the emergency room, all of those eggs would have been gone. And then possibly have had to start the process over again, but which I probably wouldn't have. And then those parents would have never got the, chance to have their children. So yeah, when I think about that, I just think about how much it's a selfless deed to be an egg donor. And that's why I have so much room in my heart for egg donors now. And as they go through
Mhm.
their journeys and everything too, it's really cool to watch that unfold for others as well.
Uh, Thank you so much for sharing your story. I loved learning about your donations, your travel, all of the families you helped build. Again, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you all for being a part of my journey and helping me, get through those fun times and those tough times. It's
Yes,
appreciated.
lots of memories with you, Donor 249. Thank you again. And for all of you listening, feel free to reach out to us at FamilySourceConsultants.com if you are interested in learning more about the egg donation process, or if you're a recipient parent that would like some more information, feel free to give us a call at 708-590-6142. Thank you.
You.
Bye.